In this video clip, I want to talk about the second half of chapter 9, which talks primarily about project management. Project management is one of those skill sets that is invaluable for anybody in a managerial position, honestly, because most of what we do in business these days can be pretty much classified as a project. And the knowledge of how projects work and how they are managed really is very, very important. So this is a topic you really need to pay some attention to, I think. Projects are around us all over the place. The definition of a project is that it is some specific activity that is well defined by a beginning date and a projected ending date, a terminal date. It has to have a well-defined purpose, and it is limited by the resources that the project manager has to manage. That's basically it. So you stop and think about a lot of the things we do in life are projects. My wife does projects all the time. They don't always have a defined ending date, but she starts a lot of them. That's an aside. Anyway, think about our class. Our class was a project. We started back in January. We're going to end next week. We knew when we started the beginning time. We knew when the ending time was. Well defined. We have scarce resources, mainly time, but facilities as well, as we've now discovered that this has not been ideal, certainly. Projects occasionally there'll be things that'll show up in a project that you don't anticipate. You can't always anticipate everything. So this is part of good project management, learning how to roll with the time, so to speak. But in business, there are lots and lots of projects, and so this is why project management is so terribly important. What is it? Project management is the application of a set of skills with certain kinds of tools that you can use. We're not going to talk too much about the tools. I'll mention them. Don't expect you to know what they are, but I would highly recommend that you look into it. Matter of fact, I would highly recommend that you might even consider taking a course in project management. We do offer classes in project management, and it'd be a good thing to do, because it is a series of different kinds of activities, processes that you have to learn how to do and do them properly. So if you can do this, and if you can do it well, there's a good chance that you'll be very successful. The project manager has to understand there are three basic things we're dealing with. Number one, we have specific tasks that have to be executed to get the project done on time. We have physical resources we have to use and allocate to the project, and we have time. Those are the three basic elements of good project management. Learning how to assign the proper tasks to the people who can do the tasks, using the physical resources you have well in a time frame that is well established. This is project management in a nutshell. The main processes of project management are basically initiating the project. We kind of talked about this in the previous video on doing systems design, systems development, because there are steps that we have to follow. And these steps pretty much are the same thing. We have to initiate the project, we have to plan out the project, execute the project, make sure it's under control the whole time. And that basically is what the processes are involved in project management. Initiation of the project, planning for the project, making sure the project's done and done properly, and controlling the process as we go through it, and finally making sure that the project is terminated at a reasonable time, finished properly. So, the basics of project management. Your book talks about this, but it's number one is make sure you have the work plan. We talked about a work plan when we discussed developing information systems. The systems analyst is generally the project manager. They have to have a detailed work plan which explains to people exactly what all needs to be done, how it needs to be done, who's going to do it, etc. This is part of the work plan. Make sure you get the right people that are doing the right thing on the project so that the project can be completed properly. Make sure that we know how much time and what other resources we're going to have to allocate to this thing. One of the things that I stress to people is the 80-hour rule. Now, I don't think your book talks about the 80-hour rule, but I think you need to know the 80-hour rule. Basically what it says, if any single task in the project is going to take more than 80 hours to complete, it's too big. What you need to do is break that task into smaller subtasks that can be more managed. The 80-hour rule simply says that in a project, you want to make sure that no single task is going to take more than 2 weeks to complete 80 hours of work time. If it is, it's too big, really too big to be managed properly, okay? Another thing that's critically important is make sure you have a change procedure. Things happen. You've witnessed that. We've lived that this semester. Things happen. Nobody at the beginning of the term figured we're going to have a COVID, Wuhan virus, whatever the heck we want to call this thing, that's put everybody in pretty much isolation. We didn't anticipate this, but we rolled with it. Why did we roll with it? Because things happen. When things happen, you have to have an alternative plan. Granted, it took me about a week to come up with a different battle plan for finishing the course. Not that it's been ideal, by any means hasn't been, but at least we have been able to complete things, sort of. And finally, we have to have an acceptance criteria so we know when the project is finished. Now, our acceptance criteria, at the beginning of the class, I give you a syllabus. That's the work plan. The syllabus has all the things that I anticipate that's going to happen throughout the semester. They still happened. And not the way I planned it initially, but they're still going to happen. You're still going to have 250 points of projects, outside of class projects, 150 points for the reading. All of that is laid out in the syllabus. That's the work plan. And we've stuck to it pretty much. Okay? So let's look at each of these items in some detail. Project planning. Project planning is pretty simple. If you've done it a time or two, it takes experience to do it properly. But every project needs to be pre-planned. You have to know how much time you're going to have, how much time you're going to have to allocate to certain activities within there. We have to keep reviewing the plan, but we have to make sure that the plan is set so that it will, at the end of the project, make sure that everything that was included in the project initially is executed. That's the key. So, plan, oftentimes the plan for a business project is different than the plan that I gave you, which is the syllabus. There's introduction, what's this about, how the project is to be organized. We're going to have to make sure that we break down the work, set project schedule, make sure that we know where we're supposed to be at what point in time, and we have to have controls built in that we can monitor our progress to make sure that we are doing things properly. So once we've done that, once we have a plan in place, then we do, in a business environment, you would create a project team. And the project team, if at all possible, you would have the best people to do the various types of activities you can. Not always possible, understand, but make sure that you have people that are sufficiently trained that can do the various aspects of the project and know how to do it. And if they don't know how to do it, make sure you have somebody around, maybe the project manager, who can lead people through the tasks to make sure that they're done. It can be frustrating sometimes to try to work with people that don't have specific skills, but as a good project manager, you have to learn to work within these constraints. So make sure you have the best possible people in the best possible place that you have. Sometimes it's not possible, just understand that. Make sure that you understand exactly what activities, what tasks have to be done within the project in order for the project to reach conclusion. And you have to understand the ordering in which these are done. So, to make sure the project is on place, remember we talked about organization, we talked about management. Again, don't forget this. What are the 4 basic functions of management? Planning, organizing, leading, control. Well, the same thing's true here. We set a plan. Now we organize it. And the way we organize it is to make sure that each task is going to be done in the proper sequence. Some tasks absolutely have to be done before other tasks can be started or completed. You have to understand this, but you also have to, during organization, set markers so that we can have measurements to see how well the project is moving. And we have to make sure that the project is on time with the proper controls. This is done in organization. Make sure that we know at each point what the deliverables of the project are so that we can see, we can have a good focus to see if we are on task. This is critically important. So set good milestones is what my notes say. Okay? Break the work into the specific tasks, set a schedule. At this point, we have to be here. At this point, we have to be here. Know who can do what. Set the task according to the use of your workforce. Make sure that you're using people the best you can possibly use them. We don't want to have any more task dependencies than necessary. And what is meant by a task dependency is very simple. It's any task that has to be completed before another task can begin. There's a dependency between those 2 tasks. We want to minimize that as much as possible. In some cases, we can't. But in order for this scheduling to work, we have to make sure that we understand what tasks must be done, the ordering in which they must be done, and the interdependence of the tasks. Once you do this, and as a good manager, you'll be able to set the proper schedule. Now, it's not as easy as it sounds sometimes, and I have a slide. I think the next slide. Yes, the next slide talks about scheduling problems. And the scheduling problems are things, and you can read the list, but it's making sure that, people are doing things the way they're supposed to be doing. There's going to be some problems. We know there's going to be problems. Understand that the last point on this slide says, the unexpected always happens. Case in point, look at our course. I sure didn't figure I'd be sitting in my study talking to a camera rather than standing in your classroom talking to my students. I'd much rather be with you. But this is what we have to do. So this is what we're doing. Okay? Now, as a project manager, there are certain tools that you have to learn. Certainly, budgets and schedules are the very basics of good project management. Budgets are the allocation of resources, schedules, the allocation of the tasks. These are plans. These are plans that have to be done and have to be done properly. Now, we have other tools that we can use to help in terms of the control process, and I've listed 3 of them. One of them is called PERT, P-E-R-T. It's Project Evaluation Review Technique, and it's a way in which we can set basically a network of activities, and we can follow through this network to see how well the project is on task. The critical path method is where we create a network, working basically backwards, where we look at when we build the network, and then we look at what tasks absolutely have to be done on time for each part of the project to be completed on time. This means there will be some sequential activities, those are task dependencies, that we're going to have to do, and that path of those dependencies is what we will map out, and that becomes the critical path. Now, there'll be parallel activities that we can do that may or may not be in the critical path. But once we have this network of activities defined, we can then look at from the end of the project back forward to the beginning and create this critical path so that we know what we have to get done in order for the project to be completed on time. The final thing I have up there is Gantt charts, and a Gantt chart is nothing more than a sideways bar graph that is a listing of the various tasks, amount of time allocated, budgeted to them. We can block out the bar graph as we move to it and make sure that we're on schedule by looking at where the bar graph is and where we have projected it should be. So there are lots of different tools, and if you take a project management course, you'll certainly learn how to use those tools, okay? The key here is to make sure that we get the project completed and completed on time, because the idea of any project is that we want it to be successful. That's why we're doing this project management activity. We want to assure that this project is a project that everybody looks at and will be satisfied with the end result. So, what makes for a successful project? Number 1, the project's finished when it's supposed to be. It's on time. Number 2, it's within budget. This is absolutely essential. Number 3, everybody who's involved in the project, their expectations are met. I've listed on here as the 5th item is that we have a positive ROI. Going back to beginning the class, return on investment. If we don't get from the project what we put into the project hasn't been worth the effort. So we want a positive return on the investment, on time and resources that we put into this project. Finally, the project fits. It does what it's supposed to do, and it enhances the business. If those items are true, then the project has been indeed a success. The last few slides I have on this, and I have posted these slides, they're under project management, strangely enough, are the skill sets that a good project manager has. The project manager is somebody who is experienced. First of all, you don't just graduate from college and automatically become a project manager. I hate to burst your bubble there. It takes experience. You have to learn how to do this. But it is something that you can learn, and once you learn this skill set, once you have this skill set, once you've experienced a number of projects, you will be an invaluable person. I can guarantee that. These are people, and if you can read this slide, it says they're organized, passionate, goal objective oriented. These are people that are committed to task. Again, like any good manager, if you're committed to task, if you are the person who's passionate about doing this, you can really be very successful. What the project manager, his role is, it's actually shown in three different T's here. You have to be transformational, you have to be transactional, and you have to be technical. These are the three skill sets you just have to have. Technical, you have to know the project, what is doing, what's supposed to be done, how it's supposed to be done. Transactional, you have to make sure that things happen. Transformational, the change of this project is something that is going to be positive on the outcome of the project. So the next few slides talk about technical. You can read this. Basically, technical says that they need to understand every aspect of the work. I couldn't, for instance, be a construction project manager because I'm not technical with information systems. I actually have worked as on a project in information systems, and I understand that. So you have to be technical. You have to have certain skill sets, or otherwise it won't fly. Transactional simply makes sure that the activities of this project, you make sure that everything that has to happen will happen. That's basically what this is. Make sure that the project happens and it happens on time. And finally, transformational is simply good management. A good manager is transformational. They bring about change, positive change, and that's basically what this talks about. It talks about the need that a good project manager can communicate well, get people to do what needs to be done so that the project is going to have the most positive, successful outcome. If you can do these things, I can guarantee that you will be successful in business. This is very important. Project management is a skill set that you really ought to strive for. And it's a skill set that anybody can learn. But it takes time and it takes some experience.